Midnight on Earth podcast with your host, Jake Weaver. Engineered by Cedric Swan.
Hey everybody, we're back with another episode of Midnight on Earth. I'm your host, Jake Weaver, and we're here to bring you more knowledge, more light, and more love. We have another returning guest, someone that was so nice enough and so generous to share her time with us previously, over a year ago. She's back. Kayci Mitchell is here. Very excited about this. We're going to talk to her in just a second. But first, I need you to do something for me. Go to waveblock.com. That is waveblock.com. And there you will find EMF shielding stickers for your Apple iPhones and your Apple AirPods of various styles. It is very well known that EMF frequencies, electromagnetic frequencies, have a detrimental effect on the human body. You think about these Bluetooth headphones that are right up against the lymph nodes, just the center of our immune system in a way, one of the centers, and it's just irradiating it. And these stickers that you can put on various styles of iPhones and the main styles of AirPods do not interfere with the functionality, but they do push the EMF frequencies away from your body. These products that WaveBlock has created protect you. They've created products that protect you. And really, in this day and age with so much technology and so many frequencies flying around us constantly, we have to do our best to protect ourselves where we can and when we can. And we do have a 20% off discount code that gets you 20% off any order at waveblock.com. And that code is the word midnight, MIDNIGHT. You put that in the discount code box at checkout. Like I said, you get 20% off your complete order. And if you go to the waveblock.com website, you will see the 5-star reviews. You will see the actual videos showing the functionality of these stickers. And you can also download lab reports, actual lab reports that show the functionality of these products. Android users, I know you know people in your family or your friends or someone that uses these Apple products. You can get these for them. They have gift cards even. And my listeners that are Apple users, you need to protect yourselves when you can. And this is an opportunity. So go to waveblock.com, use the 20% off discount code midnight when checking out. And people, this is something I've been interested in and been researching for a very long time. I know actually a lot about this personally before I was working with WaveBlock. So this is something I believe in. So please, people, go to waveblock.com. That is waveblock.com. And also check out Blue Cobra CBD. That is Blue Cobra CBD, the highest quality CBD oil on earth. Period. End of story. And why is that? There is a man named Howard Hitt, aka Big H, and he developed a proprietary extraction method to extract the CBD from the hemp flower, the actual hemp flower that he uses for his oil. It is called the Hitt extraction method, and it uses no chemicals, no solvents, and no gases. There's nothing unnatural about this. It's 100% organic, and it uses 100% organic, Oregon-grown hemp. So everything about this is magical, organic, incredible, and there are a variety of products. The King Cobra, maximum strength, Little King Cobra, regular strength, and Wild Thing CBD for pets. We want our pets to also have the highest quality products out there. CBD works amazingly well with pets. This is the highest quality CBD oil out there, and it's totally organic. I put it in my body every single day. In my morning shake, I take Blue Cobra every single day. And I love it. It helps me be my best self. So you can give it to your dogs, or your cats, or any animal, snakes, rabbits, gerbils, whatever, kangaroos. And we have a Blue Cobra Midnight on Earth discount code. It is MID CBD. That is MID CBD, and that will get you free shipping on any order in the continental 48 United States. International listeners, check with Howard at bluecobracbd.com. All his contact info is there. Talk to him. See how your country's laws correlate with his product. There's no THC in there. In some cases, it's 0%, depending on the batch. But it's never above that 0.3%. And of course, there is a money-back guarantee. If you do not like the product for some reason, you keep the product. Keep the shipping money if you had to pay it, and you get your money back. Just to be fair, this has never been used before. I just want to put that out there. No one has ever actually returned a product to Howard, but he just wants to make you feel comfortable. Give him a chance. Give this product a chance. In the ocean of CBD products, literally, this is the only one like this, period. There's really nothing else out there. Howard will tell you it cured his cancer. I can't say that, but as a journalist, yes, I can report on it. He is saying it cured his cancer. He knows 4 or 5 people that have said that it has cured their cancer, including someone with stage 4 cancer. I can't say that. I can't say it cures cancer. That's not what I'm saying. But this is what Howard is saying. So if you talk to Howard directly, bluecobracbd.com, he will tell you this. He will also tell you it cured his diabetes. I'm just reporting on that. And of course, there's so many other benefits to CBD. At the end of the day, anxiety, depression, other issues, it just helps. It helps. It's amazing. So go check it out. bluecobracbd.com. That is bluecobracbd.com. And when you're done with that, one more thing, follow me on Instagram at midnight_on_earth. That is the address. You can go there, follow us, click the button, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, wherever you go to get your podcasts. There's dozens of apps. Click the button that connects us just so you know when the next episode drops. You get that notification instantly. Everything's moving so fast, actually at the speed of light and perhaps beyond. So connect with us there. And lastly, tell a friend, tell someone that you know that loves these type of podcasts, that wants to hear this incredible conversation we're going to have with Kayci Mitchell. Tell that person you know them. They're your friend. Bring them here. midnightonearth.com. Okay, well, we're going to talk to Kayci in just a second. But of course, just like with every other guest that we have, we read their bio. So here we go. We're going to read her bio. Kayci Mitchell is a certified transformational life coach and gifted intuitive healer with many years of experience in helping individuals transcend a wide range of negative states. She has over 38 years in the field of addiction recovery. She received her certification through the Being True to You coaching organization, and she is a mastermind facilitator, licensed massage therapist, Reiki master, nutrition consultant, and she's a psychedelic integration coach specializing in life transformation and holistic addiction recovery, specializing in life transformation. That's amazing. And she became aware of treatment models integrating psychedelics years ago when she began to see the expanded options that people had for treatments for a wide variety of conditions and the amazing recovery results. She was introduced to the sacred plant medicine Ibogaine being utilized for addiction treatment and began working with numerous Ibogaine treatment clinics and aftercare facilities. This expanded into a knowledge and use of a variety of sacred plant medicines for personal and spiritual growth, mental health conditions, and addiction recovery treatment. And lastly, Kayci integrates these treatment models into her transformational coaching practice, educational workshops, and support circles. And she's here with us to tell all of us around the world about her new venture into the looking glass and so much more. Kayci, thank you so much for being here today. How are you?
Hey, Jake. I'm doing so good. I'm really happy to be here with you.
Thank you.
And thank you. Thank you for having me.
I appreciate your time. I appreciate your generosity. We had such an amazing conversation last time, and the world has changed dramatically in just that year and 6 weeks, I believe, or somewhere around there. In that time, the world has changed dramatically. We're in another place, a new place, and psychedelics are in a new place. Isn't that amazing? What do you think about that? Where are we right now?
Well, it's like the lid has been blown off the proverbial crock pot.
Or Pandora's box, we could say.
Open the Pandora's box, and it's really exciting. It's really exciting. I mean, there is. So when I started finding out about, psychedelic medicines back, so it's been, 8 years ago, 9 years ago now. And when I was introduced to Ibogaine, which comes from the sacred plant Iboga, the information that was available on the internet was extremely minimal, just about any psychedelics. And now, if you go onto the internet and just put in a search for, psychedelic medicine, psychedelic integration, anything related psychedelic, it's kind of mind-boggling how much information is out there. And people are feeling much more comfortable talking about it publicly. Just even a year and a half ago, when we had the last podcast, there were, therapists who do specialize in psychedelic integration, but they wouldn't put that anywhere on their website, and they wouldn't talk about that. They would talk about integrating altered states of consciousness was the kind of code language that they would use. And that's just like one example.
Sure.
Of, now people, there's this freedom that people have to actually use the word psychedelics in relation to what they're doing professionally.
It does seem it does seem like there is a very big shift in the mainstream consciousness to radical acceptance. We talked last time about the upcoming medical mushroom distribution centers and how that's going to all play out. But really, it's just hitting the mainstream consciousness in such a way that it's being extremely normalized. I personally share an office space where I record my podcasts. I share an office space with some natural health practitioners and also some conventional health practitioners in the mental health realm and things like that. And I see the magazines that are coming in, and these are mainstream magazines talking about the future of psychedelic therapy, MDMA. And this is very mainstream. These are very generalized. There's not much mysticalness, or I should say some sort of like strange, attitude towards it. It's really just normal. They're acting like it's a brand new medicine and it's normal. And isn't it amazing?
which is not a brand new medicine.
I know.
MDMA and LSD, but these other, these plant medicines, iboga, psilocybin, peyote, and the ayahuasca. These have been used for thousands of years, and it's. Can I say it's just very white of us to say, "Oh, look, how miraculous. These things actually work and do something."
I think it's really just a Western mindset. It's really just the Western versus the Central American. You have the Mayan mindset and the Western mindset. It really is cross-cultural because it's just where certain overarching ideologies are at. It's strange how we're just now kind of really grasping it. It seems like it's in response to some other push, like some other thing is happening, and then the solution is to increase the awareness of psychedelics in the mainstream sense. Like what is the other polarity to that? What is counterbalancing that this is the solution towards?
Well, I think that there's this groundswell that's been happening for a long time. I mean, you look at, the civil rights activists and the, raising awareness of, the settling of the United States and the, colonizers. And so having an awareness of a raised awareness of specifically those issues, and this intolerance and all of these limiting belief systems. There's the cultural limiting belief systems, the religious limiting belief systems, and mindsets, right? So there's and control issues. So we'll talk specifically about the substance. What is it? The Substance Act of 1978. That's not the exact name of it, but it was put through by the Nixon administration. Okay. Where they put all of the psychedelic medicines into a Schedule 1 category. So that's when they developed the scheduling of drugs. And what that was really about, what's come out, is that it was about controlling populations of people. So, and what's happening now, it's like those medicines, there's a number of medicines that were being studied by scientists, and they had evidence that they were medically beneficial for people and that they have a low rate of addiction, yet they were put into a drug schedule category that said that they had no medical purpose and that they were highly addictive.
And it seemed like that was to react to the counterculture movement of the time, right? They wanted to squash any sort of consciousness expansion, they being the general controllers of the laws and things that, governmental systems that would want to keep certain sectors oppressed. They saw that as a tool to keep them in jail. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. A way to, go into their communities, pluck them out and put them in jail, and then the whole, the prison system. Oh God, I know. Right. So, it's greed, it's power, disempowering people. And to me, it's like the solution to that is individuals finding their own personal power. And, how we were talking a little bit about this before, how is it that I'm participating in the dysfunction of society? What are the, what are the limiting belief systems, within myself that were passed on from my family, from culture, that are not serving me? And that's one of the things that I talk a lot about with my coaching clients and in my groups is, it's like, do your preparation work. What is it that you want to have a shift in? Lots of people don't even know what they need to have a shift in. They're like really depressed and they don't realize that it's a direct result of some underlying
trauma response that they have to a dysfunctional upbringing that was based on an abusive parent trying to have power over them.
So it seems like that as people come on board, as psychedelics are legalized and in Oregon currently decriminalized, but in Seattle, they're legalized, certain psychedelics. As new people come on board, they kind of need this guidance and some sort of framework to work with as they approach these things. Because like you just said, these psychedelics can be an incredible tool to rewrite paradigms. These old paradigms that could have been instilled in us by authority figures subconsciously. We don't even know it was there. We were little kids. And that could be used as a tool. And you're saying that in some cases, this isn't really noticed, or is this something that's just opening up right now?
Well, it depends on what circles you're connected with. I've been learning about this for like the whole time, or a lot of years. I've been on a spiritual path for 39 years now. And I think probably I'd say over like the last 20 years, there's so much information that is being downloaded into people's consciousness. And there's these, openings in people's consciousness where they're learning about these things. They're becoming more aware of what the causes of their current states of suffering are. So I would like to talk a little bit about this shift from the allopathic Western medicine model into this like personally empowered, personally responsible model of treatment.
Yeah, let's talk about it.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
That sounds amazing. I mean, we do need, that's part of what we do here on the podcast. I know you do with your 6 groups that you run with the Portland Psychedelic Society, the community you've built there, is that we're really just trying to help people grow and shift and get past whatever issues so we can heal and really create more and just be incredible creators and builders.
Yeah. And that's the thing, is that there's this, massive paradigm shift that's taking place right now. And it's difficult for people to get their mind around it because they've had this, this Western medical allopathic model upbringing. And it's like you go to the doctor, you get a diagnosis, you get a prescription for it, and that's supposed to fix it. And what people are finding out is that that's not working for them. I know people have been on antidepressants for 10, 20 years, and they're still depressed.
Oh, God.
Right?
I know. Me too. I mean, it's terrible.
Right. Well, it's a sign of something that's not working. Addiction, right? The abstinence-based addiction treatment. And I just do need to say, for some people, medication for antidepressants does work. It does work for a certain population of people. But what about the people that are still suffering? Right. So, and then addiction recovery also. So there's the abstinence-based treatment models, which do work for a very small percentage of people compared to the number of people that need treatment for addiction. And, so it's like the addiction is not the problem. Depression is not the problem. It's there's these underlying causes, there's these underlying currents. And, one of the underlying causes is this victim mindset that people have, that, that we are a victim of depression or whatever the disease is, that we don't have anything to do with causing it. And the fact is, the way that I approach life is that we are master co-creators.
Yes.
And right?
Yes, definitely.
And that there's the subconscious, the lower self, middle self, and higher self is one way you can talk about it. And so the middle self, or the conscious mind, is, that's the one that we are like in 3D with. But there's like all of this other stuff happening on this higher self level and on this subconscious level that expresses in the physical 3D. So, what about all that?
It's a lot to think about because it's information that you have to be aware of as you build your three-dimensional perspective. Some people only exist in one of those three, and they think that that's all there is. And it's really interesting how by pulling those three together, you shift into that multi-dimensional perspective. But you have to train yourself to get there. That's part of the role of psychedelics, I think, is to help people be aware that they have that. And I think it's because you can shift your actual real-time awareness to your higher self occasionally. Mm-hmm. And that's potentially.
Well, yeah, and become aware of the subconscious self, and what are the what's on your hard drive. These, right. So there's these the cultural norms that we have been brought up with. Then you go back to like the generational traumas that are passed on through your DNA. So that's like a big, huge, gigantic subject. The subconscious self, and then where people just act out of it and they don't even realize that they're doing that. So and then the higher self, or expanded consciousness space, that's a really cool space to be in, but it's very difficult. I mean, like you said, there's a learning curve with that, being able to, connect to the higher consciousness and still be able to function, everyday 3D world.
Yes, I've heard recently someone said that we are here as material beings to have this material experience. If we were meant to be in the spirit world all the time while we were here, we would just be spirits. So really, we're here to do material work as spirits. I thought that was really interesting.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. But I mean, I think that we do have work here to do. That's very important. I think that's part of the psychedelic experience, is bringing that in. But it is, like you said, it does have a learning curve. There is an adjustment process. There is almost a culture shock, you can say, by integrating that new information. It's so alien, but it's actually your natural state, but it's so alien. It takes time to really bring that in. And that's kind of what I was thinking as these new people come on with these trip centers that we talked about, that in Oregon, they're just right around the corner. They're like 6 to 9 months away. What do you think is going to happen with that as psychedelics really start to take off? I mean, like you said, it's a psychedelic renaissance right now, but as things go really, really, really mainstream, what do you think is going to happen?
Well, we're at a really interesting time, because it's like there's these, it's kind of like there's the psychedelic world clashing with big pharma.
Yes.
And Western medical allopathic, right? So it's like, wow, well, what's this going to look like? Is really, it's like, what is this going to look like? Not who's going to win, but how is it going to play out? Because, like we were talking about, like there's these, cultural norms of, greed and power. And when you're talking about the psychedelic space, so let's talk about that for just a minute, the psychedelic space. Sure. So what psychedelics or entheogens do is it knocks the default mode network offline. And, some of them are tryptamines. So it's DMT, dimethyltryptamine. And that's a substance that's in everything. It's in our brain. It is created in the pineal gland. It's active during sleep when we dream, and it's the chemical that allows our consciousness to leave the body at death. So DMT that medicine, what it does is it gives you that this altered state of consciousness experience. And the other medicines, and so the default mode network are like all the, people can do a Google on default mode network and psychedelics, and you will come up with tons of information.
But it's really just like the chattering mind, like the actual, like the monkey mind, you could say, or just like that human kind of baseline community, the programming, all the programming that we've received, all shuts off. It all shuts off.
Yeah. And it's the ego, people talk about ego death. I don't really use that terminology. But the ego is it's what's developed for us to survive. And it's not just the survival, don't put your hand on a hot stove kind of strategies. It's all of the strategies. It is the, don't allow for people of color to be authentic and step into their power. Don't allow for females to step into their power. Just all the things that are created for survival. So what happens is, and it's like there's a ton of things. Those are just like
just big ego examples.
Right. So what happens is all of that is knocked offline, and you're opened up into this space. People have these mystical experiences, this experiences of, or this is a potential, having these experiences of oneness, unity, gratitude, bliss. They'll have perspective shifts on traumatic situations, perspective shifts on situations that have baffled them for years, depression, and there's so many different ways that information can come true. So those get knocked offline. And then when we come back in to our conscious 3D, our task and our work is to integrate that into the everyday living. And that can be that's like, there are so many different things that people can be called to create, to maintain the shift that they became open to during this psychedelic journey. Now, it does require people taking responsibility for themselves.
Definitely. And I think you have to make it a habit as well. Like once you have that experience and you get opened up to that incredible loving feeling, you want to bring it back, you want to maintain it. It's hard because you're in this kind of denser physical experience, but you recognize it, you remember it. So you have to make a habit of it. You have to make a habit of being loving and staying in that high frequency, that place where you were, the love frequency, that beautiful, blissful love. You bring it back, but it's a habit because the human experience, there's so many situations that could trip you up, but maintaining that habit, I think, is the key to holding on to that. And that's part of the work.
Well, it is. And that's what I refer to it as a lifestyle of integration.
Yes.
And, like you were saying earlier, when people will come back from, some people, people go down to Peru and have, drink ayahuasca for 4 nights, go on an ayahuasca retreat. And, it's amazing. It's blissful. It's difficult. It's, all of those things, but they're like in this bubble down there. And then they come back to their life in the United States. And it is shocking for people. It is shocking. And so, this integration piece, it's like, it's important to be prepared for the experience and then prepared to integrate the experience once you come back out of it. And, oftentimes people will, or oftentimes there are people who will have this massive mindset shift where, all of a sudden they like realize how they've been living, and it's not authentic for them. It's not beneficial and useful. It, may have been, divisive and abusive. And so, so then they come back into their world and it's like, well, now what do I do?
Well, it's a really big frequency shift, I think, is what happens is they have those gargantuan, like somebody turns the dial really far and now they're a different person instantly, and they have to reintegrate that. There's no going back. I think that is one thing that I've learned through having these peak psychedelic experiences, is that once you understand what happens to you once you go through those experiences, there really is no going back. And I don't want to scare people like there's some sort of damage that's happening. It's actually quite the opposite. It's incredible growth and an opening and increasing of an awareness, and that makes you a better person. So that's why you're not the same person, and that's what changes you, I think.
Well, it's kind of like you can't unsee the truth.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but once the consciousness is raised, it will always be up at that point. I mean, you may want to try to dodge it, but no.
And you have a lot of experience with this. I remember we talked about this. You did run some clinics with some friends, some Ibogaine clinics. Could you remind our audience about that a little bit? Your history there?
Well, I didn't run clinics, but I worked at some Ibogaine treatment clinics. Yeah, in Baja, Mexico, and the treatment model at that time was a 5 or 7 day detox program, and there was at that time a friend of mine had an aftercare center in Nevada, but that was really the only place that you can go for aftercare for an quote Ibogaine treatment.
Really?
Yeah.
And what is aftercare? What would you describe aftercare as?
Basically learning a lifestyle of integration.
Okay. Back to the integration. It all goes back to That's amazing. Yeah. So so this aftercare center, you're helping people understand what they went through in a way.
Understand what they went through, and then after that, I did work on several projects with my friend Tyson, who passed away a few years ago.
Yes. I remember.
And for pre-care and post-care for Ibogaine, but then we started integrating, or we started offering other medicines at those clinics, the pre and post-care clinics. So sweat lodge, yoga, breath work, of course, like I'm such a coach. So it's like, okay, journaling and, writing and looking at what your underlying traumas are to be resolved, and what's your commitment for for moving forward with making habit changes, lifestyle changes. How are you going to have that supported moving forward in your life, participating in 12-step models or recovery models, or psychedelic society meetings. So all of that integration is huge. It's like anything that you can come up with that relates to healthy self-care or healthy living is integration.
Yeah. And I think that that's really part of the purpose of these psychedelics. We talk about these things and we understand that these are very powerful substances. We're not really talking about these lightly. We understand that. I know Kayci understands that for sure. It's just that these substances are now going mainstream. So we want people to understand what's happening with these. I mean, like we talked about last time, there's trip centers just around the corner. Are you thinking of opening one? I mean, I know the stipulations are still the same. You only need a high school diploma. You don't need a doctorate or any other certification. I actually had that verified just recently. And the opportunity is there. Is that something you ever think you would take on?
I don't know. Well, we will see. I live my life by like following the breadcrumbs, because there's a lot of things that I've accomplished in my life that I never would have imagined.
Yes. You've really done great work.
Yeah, exactly. President of Portland Psychedelic Society, not in my plans, but I did it.
Right.
And this whole, psychedelic thing, not in my plans, but these were the breadcrumbs, and I followed them. So I don't know. We'll see about the licensing. So for those of you that don't know, we're in Oregon, and there was a Measure 109 that was passed for legalizing supervised psilocybin sessions. And so that involves the OHA, Oregon Health Association, developing a standard for curriculum. So that's just for licensing of facilitators. Then there is the licensing of the facilities that the sessions will be offered in. And then there's the oversight for the development of the, growing of the psilocybin.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, it's like, and so they have, they developed an advisory board. And so that's what's been taking place since November, are all of these discussions on these advisory boards. And, the recommendations that they're going to send to the Oregon Health Authority to make decisions on all of those things. It's a massive undertaking.
It sounds like, curriculum. You're using the word curriculum. Really, it's how you're going to process the shamanic experience. Like, how are you going to stage it? Where are you going to take people? How are you going to bring them home? Is that what you would describe the curriculum as?
Oh, much more than that.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
It has to fit into the Western medical model.
Yeah, you were saying like the allopathic model.
So it has to fit in there. But then there's also, there's a lot of this stuff that is, kind of a little foreign to Western medical model.
Definitely.
And, there's some basics of, safety and, ethics, but, there's, so much history with these medicines. So there's education on the history, all the different ways that psilocybin has been used, or can be used. I was happy to see that it looks like one of the requirements is going to be a good hefty chunk of hours training for integration.
Oh, that's amazing.
It's really amazing.
That's huge news. I would say that's huge news, because then you're not just leaving people on the side of the road tripping their brains out.
Well,
in a figurative sense, you don't want to just let people go without understanding what they went through. Like you said, the integration. Exactly.
But the measure only defines, it requires one preparation session, the supervised psilocybin session, and then a optional integration session, only one optional integration session. So that's what's written into the measure.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, and again, it's not like, people, I'm really hoping that the curriculum that people are developing is very clear about the fact that someone is, for people not to expect to just go on this one psychedelic journey and be cured of their depression or their PTSD or whatever it is, that there's a process to it, that changing those internal workings of a human being does not happen in like 7 or 8 hours.
Yeah, it's not like a McDonald's session. There's no fast food psychedelic experience. I mean, I think, like we were saying, that's the Western allopathic mindset. It's showing up in that same way. Nothing's cookie cutter. Nobody's in a mold. Everyone's different psychologically. You can't just create these systems as if everyone's exactly the same from a physical standpoint, from a mental health standpoint, from just an intellectual standpoint, all of the above.
Well, yeah. And, the other thing with Western medical, right? I mean, spiritual healing has been talked about for thousands of years, in all these different traditions. And, there's people who talk about, they had a near-death experience, and then they come back and there's, miraculously they're healed from their cancer. And, there's just so many stories about that. But the Western medical mindset does not take that into consideration. The spiritual, the aspects of healing that take place in this spiritual space. And that's what happens with psychedelics, is that people are introduced to mystical experiences. Now,
definitely.
There's no way right now for Western medical models to like assess that or measure it. It's like you can't measure you can't measure a mystical experience and the benefits of a mystical experience on an individual within the models that we have now for measuring for success.
Wow, that's interesting to think about, because that's true. Like, how do you process interacting with the divine in a real sense, where you've crossed the threshold of knowing, you're actually experiencing it and it's transforming you? There's no ruler for that. There's a measuring stick. Even in a categorical sense, it's just beyond description, you could say. You're trying to quantify something that's beyond description.
Well, and people who have this mystical experience, they can't even quantify it.
Exactly. They could try.
It comes. Well, yeah. I mean, like with a 5-MeO DMT experience, right? I mean, DMT is called the God molecule. 5-MeO DMT is rarely have I heard someone who can actually describe what happened in that 15 or 20 minutes or 40 minutes of their journey with 5-MeO DMT. They just know that they've come back changed and that they have, come into union with the divine. And then there's, it can be measured in people's, shifts in, perceptions, ideas. I mean, but it's difficult to quantify.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, well, I all of a sudden changed my diet. Oh, this, I don't feel like smoking cigarettes anymore. Whatever it, so there are things that can be quantified, but not really.
So speaking of the mystical experiences, though, that people are going to have, what about these entities, these very real entities that exist in these higher dimensions? How are mainstream people, and I'm so sorry to describe people that way. There are fellow humans. I don't just want to just throw people in a category of mainstream people. I don't mean it that way. Like, I just really mean people that haven't been exposed to this type of information. What happens when they interact with angels, when they interact with real interdimensional beings? What do you think that's going to do for people?
Well, Are you asking what that will do for people, or how
it will shift them?
Accepted that's going to be by people that they talk to about that?
I guess both. I mean, if it's happening all over the place and people are having real transformative experiences, and I don't want to say they can replicate it because it's so personal, but they can share the experience with someone else and maybe they might have a similar experience. I mean, when we get to that level, we talk about, the shift that can happen when people are taking psychedelics, but now we're taking it a step further and saying what happens when people start to interact with these higher entities.
Well, people can interact with higher entities with or without psychedelics, right?
Of course.
I mean, right. So you have these, people who are, I have a friend of mine. I mean, there's people who are mediums.
We've had quite a few of them as guests.
Right. Yeah. So I think that part of this is that breakdown of the division that we talked about earlier, yes. Right? So, like moving into like accepting people, as they are, you take off the, these
physical
Christian ideas, or, all these religious ideas about what's right and what's wrong and what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. It's like, well, let's just come to like, what is each individual person's experience being in this meat suit, this body on the planet, right? It's right. Like, what is your experience of, how do you experience this 3D quote reality? Do you like, hear energy? Are you clairvoyant? Do you like all of a sudden just know things? Are you like, do you actually have conversations with people who have passed on from this physical form? Do you connect with angels? Like you were talking about, these angels and these entities that people communicate with when they're on a journey. People communicating with their ancestors when they're on a journey, or through whatever means they have to do that. So we've been trained to, a lot of us, and then for me, I was trained this way, but then had to outgrow it, that was like woo-woo bullshit.
Of course. Yeah. It's like, and of course, like you said, it's a religious foundation where all that thought comes from that says it's woo-woo bullshit. You analyze, you step it back and you find out, it has the religious, moral, and ethical guidelines that are saying it's evil, not just energetic, moral, and ethical guidelines.
Oh, yeah. And, witches, right? Witch came from the name of a tribe, and people have, before we had allopathic Western medicine, we had plants,
right? And
people were using plants to treat illness, and there were the people in the village or in the tribe or whatever that knew exactly how to use what was available for healing. And then they do spiritual healing. There are tribes and cultures where, someone who hears voices and someone who sees things that nobody else sees, they consider that a gift. And they take that person and they train them to be a healer, to be the healer of their community. So, it's about this complete shift of, what people think about that stuff.
Yeah, how the whole world is going to shift, really. It's just everything across the board. And I think what you're saying is that all of these worlds will kind of dissolve into each other. And because it was really just one real situation to begin with, and all of these filters that we have that are blocking our interactions between these worlds are going to dissolve. And it's just going to be this one beautiful experience and it's going to be undeniable. And perhaps that's part of our evolution, is to go through that.
Well, I think that you know that that's true.
I do know that's true.
It is. Yeah, I mean, this is part, the way that I see things is that, like, we are all connected on this conscious level, right? This higher level consciousness, and even you can call it God consciousness, Christ consciousness, whatever, but it's like we're all connected there. And I do believe that each individual is a manifestation of that consciousness.
Yes.
Manifestation of the God consciousness. So it's like, we looked at what's going on down on Earth, and it's like, oh, okay, well, I'm going to go down there. I'm going to beam into that body, and I'm going to, help with bringing, compassion and forgiveness to the world. But what I'm going to do is, like, hurt some people so that there's this, cauldron of people having to learn about compassion and forgiveness and personally empowering themselves. And, and then we are, like, all in this, doing this together, and through either conscious practices while you're on the planet, or maybe it won't be until you leave the planet where you get to see that, oh, you know what? We are all one. We are all doing this together.
I think it's coming. I mean, that is our natural state as we talk about, but I just feel like it's going to be so interesting as conventional people. I don't want to keep putting people in boxes. As people that haven't been exposed to this information really kind of get exposed to it for the first time, those initial awakening experiences, whether individual and collectively, it's going to be a sight to behold. I would say, as veterans of the experience as we are, it's going to be a sight to behold as we see everyone blossom and collectively blossom.
Well, it's a huge learning curve. There's a huge learning curve for a lot of people. Some people are like, they're naturally able to live from an authentic, open-minded space, hippies. And that's what people call people like that: tree huggers, hippies.
Well, it's evolved, conscious people. Now we say conscious people. New Age was probably in the 80s,
What wokeism?
It just goes in all different direction. I personally feel that my experience with psychedelics, the biggest thing that I've learned is that we're all light beings in a physical body. And that's what unifies us. Our body is really just this incredible acclimation of earth elements and other forces, and also just powered by the life force. And that's really us. That's what unites us. I think that that's the biggest thing I learned, is that in order to unite the world, in order to really get everyone on the same page, we have to start with the fact that no matter where we are, who we are, our ancestry, our lives, our genders, we're really just light beings. If we can start there, we can heal the world. I really feel that.
I would agree with you 100%.
And that's where the love comes in. And then the respect, goes down into the physical realm, and the love, and you're always just respecting each other and loving each other. But if we could really just start there, I think that's part of it. And that's part of the things that psychedelics do, is really help you separate from your physical body and really get to that energetic self. And is that what Into the Looking Glass is all about? Let's talk about that a little bit. This is your new situation. You're still with the Portland Psychedelic Society, facilitating 6 different groups, which we're going to remind people of at the end. But you did step down. You're the former president, but now you have the Into the Looking Glass situation that's developing. Please tell us all about that and what your intentions are with that.
Well, what my intentions are is to continue doing the work that I've been doing. So I'm an integration coach. So I work with individuals one-on-one. And I also so to expand my group coaching services is something that is going to be into the looking glass. And continue to offer my these donation-based events. I am a huge advocate of creating community and participating in community. There is nothing that that replaces it. For as far as personal and spiritual growth.
Sure.
Contributing, receiving, showing up, finding your place in a community. So I will be building into the Looking Glass community. I've done that with Portland Psychedelic Society. And so those are my people there. And I'm going to continue, in this other, business entity.
And really, this is potentially where the Trip Center could show up. If you do choose to do that, it feels like you should. I don't know why I keep bringing that up, but it just feels like you should, like in a way, like all about it. You are the right person into the Looking Glass. I mean, you already have the cool name. Like it feels natural. I don't know. That's just my opinion.
So the possibilities are infinite. Like in the quantum field, possibilities are infinite. And I'm really good at preparation and integration coaching.
Right.
I have a lot of experience with that. So definitely I will be working with psilocybin services facilitators who are offering sessions as well as facilities. So definitely work with the bookending of these sessions because it's essential for people to have that.
I think you kind of need to, as respect to the divine and to the substance itself, the natural spirit of the natural element, and then just your fellow man, like just to be in that frequency of love. You have to set it up that way.
Yeah. And, and I've been doing this for so long. I, know the value of community. I know what people need to integrate and all of the different areas. And this spiritual aspect of it is really important. It's, I'm have been a 12-step person for 39 years. And that is the basis of the success of the 12-step movement is people moving into this spiritual realm and lean on, it was 12-step was very Christian based, but integrating a relationship with God, universal life force, power greater than themselves, whatever you want to call it. And without that element, people's growth is stunted. I fold that into my coaching. I fold that into my, into my groups. I'm interested to see what Into the Looking Glass is going to end up being.
Wow. Well, this is really exciting. I think that the spiritual component, like you just talked about, is probably the primary component. And that is the purpose of it. So if we can just help people and guide people, and like you said, you could bookend those experiences maybe for another trip facility. Who knows? Maybe there'll be a Midnight on Earth psychedelic facility, and you can help me. You can bookend it, because the thing is that in Seattle, and we talked about this on the phone privately, is that they legalized, I believe it was Ibogaine. I know it was mescaline, synthesized mescaline, and all forms of psilocybin in the city of Seattle are completely legalized. And so it seems like by the time these trip centers are fully in place and open for business, you could say, there will be even more substances to choose from. It won't be just psilocybin, which is something else to think about.
There is so much to think about. It is like it's very psychedelic. It's like it's really it's very difficult to get one's mind around everything that is happening.
Well,
it's really difficult.
Well, it seems like, and like I said, we talked about this privately, but there's war and strife in the world right now. And you see that as one polarity, but then you see this rising up of consciousness as freedom, the access to these substances that will literally change the world happening potentially in response, like we said earlier, but you could at least see the juxtaposition, the polarities balancing each other out.
Yeah, and there's a huge demand for an effective option for healing for people. Yes. Depression has been off the charts over the last 2 years. The suicide rates, the overdose rates, it is so severe right now. And that's one of the reasons why I love doing my donation-based groups, is because it gives people a place to come to find some answers for themselves. And, it's not just all about psychedelics. I mean, it is, but it's like, lifestyle changes and community. So that's the preparation.
And community, which is so important, like you said.
And community. Yeah. Yeah. It's just community in and of itself is so healing. And you hear these stories of other people. I mean, again, back to 12-step, it's like, you have, it's based on one drunk talking to another, one alcoholic talking to another alcoholic saying, oh, well, this is what I did to heal from a life-threatening case of alcoholism, and, helping someone else learn how to do the same thing. And then, someone else, them passing it on to the next person and the next person. And this, community that grows up around that. And
you've been doing really well with that. And tell me about the 6 groups. What are the 6 groups? Because people can find you there. And it doesn't matter where you are in the world. You can be anywhere in the world, and you can go to these meetup groups that you facilitate. So can we tell people about those? What are these groups?
Well, first, the Into the Looking Glass meetup. So I'm starting to offer groups there. So that's my private meetup group. Well, it's public, but it's mine. And with Portland Psychedelic Society, so the groups that I developed and facilitate there, integration circles. So a couple of community integration circles. There's an addiction, recovery, and psychedelics. So people who want to find out about treating addiction with psychedelics can come there. I have a women's group once a month. There is a microdosing group that I co-facilitate with my friend Joe Eaton.
Nice.
And I started a group that's called Psychedelics for the New and Curious.
Ooh.
Yeah.
See, all of this sounds like the foundations of a trip center. I'm sorry. I don't know if like if you were to take those titles and put them together, I'd say, oh, it sounds like you want to open a trip center. But that's amazing. So people can find you there, and they could go to the Portland Psychedelic Society website, or they could just go to meetup.com and search by your name.
Go. You can't find me on the website. I'm not on the board of directors anymore. You just go to Meetup. And find,
Meetup.
Yeah, Portland Psychedelic Society and Into the Looking Glass, and you can find me there. You can find me you can message me on Instagram. It's intothelookingglass.kmm.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm on Facebook. People can find me there.
Well, I think that there's people that are searching right now, and we have access to all of our statistics, and a lot of the listeners to this program, even though it's worldwide, they do tend to fall into the younger age range, because there are these new people, these wonderful souls, and we love you, that are looking for this information, and they're looking to us to guide them to the right places. They're looking to us to give them the right information. So I really want them to go and check out your meetup groups. And of course, a website is on the way. If you're listening to this and this is a previous episode, you'll be seeing this. This is under construction right now, but it is intothelookingglass.co. So that is a website that's being built right now. And you'll see that as Into the Looking Glass develops. And like Kayci said, you can find her at intothelookingglass.kmm on Instagram. And really, Kayci, we've had an incredible conversation. We've touched on so many things, your incredible life, what's coming, the general consciousness shift in relation to psychedelics. But is there anything else you'd like to leave our incredible audience with before we end this interview?
What I would like to leave the people with is be present and be grateful and be with your loved ones.
Amazing.
I just, what we've been through over the last 2 years with the pandemic and, currently there's a war in Ukraine, right? And there's a lot of people who are, for me, there was a lot of transformation. It was really, really hard and very dark at, sometimes for me personally and what I went through, but we're all coming out the other side of this. And it is up to us to make that conscious choice to basically be better humans on the planet.
Yes. Be representatives of love and light every single day. We talk about that all the time. Make it a habit to be loving. Make it a habit to be a light being. To be a light being 24/7 and recognize your fellow humans as light beings that deserve as much love, respect, and admiration as you do. Right?
Yeah. And it just allow people to be who they are.
Yes.
And if you don't like it, then set your boundary and get the hell out of there.
Well, thank you, Kayci, for being on the show. I really appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Please reach out to me. Anyone who, I'm very accessible, and I would love to have a conversation with anyone who's listening to this podcast and would like to connect.
Epic. Well, please hold through the outro music. And everyone, what an incredible conversation. I love talking to Kayci, and we want to be here as a sounding board for the people. It doesn't actually matter what age you are. If you're new to this information, if you're new to this experience and you have questions, feel free to reach out in any form. There's like 900 different ways to connect with people now instantly. So feel free to reach out. I think that's what we're saying. And we love you. So please, everyone, we'll see you next week. Midnight on Earth.